Are Kalani Sitake and the BYU Cougars set to make their first ever college football playoff berth and, more importantly, have a first-round bye? One publication thinks so.
You are Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast on the BYU Cougars. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? Welcome into Locked On Cougars, your daily podcast focused on the BYU Cougars. I'm Jake Hatch, executive producer of the KSL Sports Zone in Salt Lake City and 13-year credentialed media member at BYU. As always, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day, and thank you once again to all of you who like to call our everydayers right here on the Locked On Podcast Network. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at GameTime. Download the GameTime app today, create an account, use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege, and get $20 off your first purchase. All right, coming up on today's show, we're talking about projections for BYU football as we are now inside 100 days ahead of the upcoming college football season and the chances BYU can make a run at the college football playoff. Then we're going to talk about BYU basketball. Have they cracked the code, and did they help kind of levy the Euro League to do something that they have been very reticent to do? And then we'll finish up today's show with our weekly Q&A with our insiders group. They've lobbied the questions at me, and I will answer as many in the time we have allotted. All right. Right out of the chute, if you did not see it yesterday, ESPN and a number of other publications out there did their 100 days ahead of the football season countdown special. And what it is, a lot of these publications like to celebrate the fact that we have entered now just 99 days away from the start of the college football season. Now, BYU, they're 106 days away because week 0 has a handful of games that BYU will not be participating in. They will open up on what is technically week 1 when they take on Portland State. But 100 days out yesterday, ESPN has BYU in the mix to A, potentially make their first ever college football playoff berth, and B, potentially have their first ever first round bye and could actually be their only ever first round bye if current changes to the college football playoff format go through. But that's beside the point. That's a topic for another day if and when that changes. The nice part is ESPN believes that BYU is firmly in the mix to make a run at the college football playoff. So they essentially did 100 different things under different topic headings in this article. And one of the topic headings was 10 potential first-time CFP teams. Well, if you scroll down, okay, you have number 7, Texas Tech, number 6, Kansas State, both Big 12 compatriots of BYU's. Then number 4, you have Iowa State, number 3, Miami, South Carolina, Illinois, and then smack dab in the middle at number 5, there are your beloved BYU Cougars. And they say this: the Cougars were another fringe playoff contender last year and will have a chance to win on the road to take the next step. They have tough trips to Colorado, Iowa State, and Texas Tech, but they return top talent and quarterback Jake Retzlaff, running back LJ Martin, and receivers Chase Roberts. And they also mentioned Keelan Marion here, so that's obviously a mistake. So the bigger point is, they believe that BYU is firmly in the mix, along with a bunch of their compatriots atop the Big 12, to make a run at the college football playoff. We all know last year Arizona State punched their ticket and was a call or two or an overtime away from advancing in the playoff. But the talent is there for BYU. And as they mentioned, they're going to have to win on the road. They mentioned Colorado, Iowa State, and Texas Tech. Those are all difficult games. There's a lot of people out there who believe that Texas Tech is likely to be, at minimum, maybe the second or maybe even the top team in the Big 12 in the preseason poll. I think BYU at worst will be top 4. That game in Lubbock could go a long way to determining who might be playing in the Big 12 title game, and more importantly, who has the leg up in a potential run at a college football playoff berth. But also, Colorado to kick off Big 12 play for BYU. I'll pull back the curtain right now. Yours truly, I am going to Folsom. I'm going to Boulder to take in that game. My dad, for his birthday, decided he wanted his sons to go with him to a football game, so we just booked the trip, and we're headed to Folsom. So if you're going to Colorado to watch BYU, look out for me. I'll be there sitting in the stands with y'all. But I think the bigger point is, if BYU can sweep those games, Colorado, Iowa State, and Texas Tech, they could find themselves absolutely, A, atop the Big 12, and B, have the inside track at a college football playoff berth. The toughest of those 3 games is that Iowa State game. That is a terrifying game because it is the week, there's no bye. There's a week after BYU plays Utah at home on homecoming in mid-October. The following week, BYU has to go to Ames, Iowa to take on Rocco Becht, Matt Campbell, and the rest of the Iowa State Cyclones. That, in my opinion, is the toughest game, maybe the true swing game for BYU on the season. You take that one, I think that'll tell us a lot about BYU's gumption, their overall prowess, and what we can expect from this team. Now, continuing on with this article with ESPN, a little later on in the article, they had their 10 potential first-round bye teams. Now, number 10, Boise State. Number 9, LSU. The only other team that's in the Big 12 that's listed here is Iowa State at number 4. But then, if you look at number 8, BYU. The Cougars can earn a top 4 seed if they win the Big 12, which is, again, wide open. Last year's Big 12 champion, Arizona State, was seeded 4 behind Boise State, but the Big 12 is getting the edge this preseason with Ashton Genty now in the NFL. The Cougars are ranked ahead of LSU because their path to a conference title looks easier than LSU's. There are a lot of people out there, and you can go and look them up. There's a lot of metrics out there that say that BYU may have the easiest path to Big 12 supremacy this year of any team. They avoid Arizona State. And yes, I would have liked to have seen a rematch between ASU and BYU simply for eyeball's sake and to have a chance to exact some revenge. But avoiding that game, that's huge for BYU. Yes, they got to face other contenders like an Iowa State, like a Texas Tech we've already talked about. Colorado, they're going to try and play spoiler this year because it feels like it might be a little bit of a reload year versus truly contending. But BYU has got a number of teams on their schedule as well who are considered to be lower on the totem pole when it comes to the Big 12 race. So I appreciate the fact that ESPN is acknowledging BYU absolutely is in the mix, because I went and read a story at cbssports.com and there was nary word about BYU in their preview 100 days out from the college football season. So I really think BYU should be feeling good about themselves. Kalani Sitake has done a really, really fine job, in my opinion, stockpiling talent, especially being very meticulous and targeted when it came to the transfer portal cycle. And there could still be some additions via the portal if BYU finds somebody out there, because it's not closed. Well, the window's closed for guys to enter the portal, but guys can come out of the portal at any point in terms of signing with a program. And if BYU finds a guy that they like, they still maybe could find a 1 or 2 slots in terms of roster availability to bring those bodies in. And I think the way that they've gone about building this roster, and in particular, betting on continuity like they did last year, because remember that first year in the Big 12, BYU turned over more than half that roster, and it yielded a team that did not gel really at all in that 5-7 season. They bet on continuity, buckled down on the guys already in the program last year. Yes, added a couple of bodies here or there, but were not completely intent on overhauling the roster, and it yielded an 11-2 campaign. I think the track record, as small a sample size as it may be, says bet on continuity, bet on the guys you have in your program, bet on your strength and conditioning, bet on having guys come in and hone their craft and work with the players around them, and simply put, just buy in to BYU. That is going to yield better results, at least from what we can already observe 2 years into the Big 12 tenure for BYU football, versus, going out and try and add guy here, there, and every single position. Transfer portal, it's a really, really big crapshoot. And I think BYU's been smart about the guys they've added. They vet them thoroughly and make sure they're not going to come in and be a poison in the locker room. That's one thing that BYU is very intent on avoiding. And if they can do that, I think ESPN's got a very good point here that BYU absolutely is in the fray to make a run at the college football playoff. And yes, if they can handle their schedule, which has got some breaks in it, they very well could find themselves with a first-round bye and be playing for all the marbles, as they say when it comes to the college football playoff. All right, coming up next, did Kevin Young once again crack the code and completely change the college basketball recruiting scene? We'll explain what's happening over in Europe that BYU apparently may have influenced a big change from the EuroLeague, and we'll do that next right here on Locked On Cougars. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at GameTime. Now, GameTime is here for you guys to get you out to the events you want to go to. The best part about GameTime, with NBA playoffs going on, the atmosphere is absolutely incredible. Intensity, there's the buzzer beaters, the fans losing their minds. It's the kind of atmosphere that you must experience live. I can tell you, I've been to Utah Jazz playoff games, and if they're anything like any other playoff game around the NBA, I can tell you it's an absolute must-see. And this year's matchups are already delivering. So if you want in, GameTime makes it fast and easy to get seats, even for the biggest playoff games. And the best part is prices on the app actually go down the closer you get to tip-off. And with killer last-minute deals, panoramic seat views, and no surprise fees all included, GameTime is a total game changer. The best part is you can go and see your exact view from the seat. You'll know exactly what to expect when you show up. The app is making it super simple and ridiculously easy to get your tickets. And the best part is the price you see in the app It's exactly what you'll pay when you check out because there's no surprise fees being tacked on. It's the all-in pricing feature, which I absolutely love about GameTime. So take a guesswork out of buying your tickets and do it with our friends at GameTime. Download the GameTime app today, create an account, and use the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create that account and redeem the promo code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off. Download the GameTime app today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price. And, of course, as always, it's guaranteed. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Thank you to all of you. I've seen a really nice uptick in people subscribing and rating and reviewing the show. Continue to do that. If you have not done so already, there's a like button down here. If you're watching this on YouTube, all you got to do is hit the thumbs up. Also hit that bell notification icon. It'll notify you every time a new episode drops. And be a part of the group. It's a really, really fun community we're building here. And as always, thank you for all the support there. All right. Saw this yesterday as the NBA Combine was playing out that the Euro League, which is considered to be the best league outside of the NBA in basketball, it's essentially like the NBA light because a lot of guys who have played in the NBA may not be rotation pieces in the NBA. Some of them go overseas and they play in the Euro League and they do very, very good things. Now, Jonathan Givony and other reporters out there said that players under contract with international teams cannot just get up and leave for college without permission. As they mentioned, we have seen schools pay buyouts to clubs this offseason and last. Young players often make up to 10 times or more in college via NIL after leaving Europe. Well, that brought up an interesting thing because the NCAA and the Central Board of the EuroLeague have essentially come to an agreement that is going to allow them to streamline the process of getting young talent from the EuroLeague. And we all know what happened with Jaeger Demon. BYU did have to pay a buyout to get him away from Real Madrid to come to play at BYU. They're going to streamline it and treat it essentially as if the NCAA and college basketball were another fledgling professional league, which, let's be honest, it's become that. But there was an added note to this from Jonathan Givony said this: European teams should do a better job of making it attractive for young players to stay home if they're that concerned about the buyouts and that type of stuff. As he mentions here, Hugo Gonzalez left over $1 million on the table from BYU, but can barely get off the bench some games for Real Madrid. As he mentions, pretty clear Jaeger Demon made the right decision to leave, unquote. It's actually a really good point because some people, when I retweeted this, used the eyeball emoji to kind of point out what was going on. Hugo Gonzalez is a guy who's going to be battling for maybe back half of the first round, maybe early second round consideration in this year's NBA draft. Well, Jaeger Demon, he is shining at the NBA Combine. We talked about it yesterday. If you're an everydayer, we talked about the fact that he's shooting it extremely well. The buzz continues to kind of grow and grow and grow. I saw multiple tweets from guys like Brett Siegel, Mike Babcock. There's a lot of people out there who are buying in and hearing the NBA teams are buying into Jaeger Demon with his performance in Chicago this week. That is why I think the point here about Hugo Gonzalez is very curious because BYU did kick the tires on him when they were also trying to get Jaeger Demon to BYU. What I was told is there were some contractual deals with the Hugo Gonzalez deal that prohibited, I guess, prohibit is probably the strong term, but made it essentially unwieldy for BYU to try and get Hugo in addition to Jaeger. So BYU essentially turned all their attention on getting Jaeger to BYU. And as Jonathan Givony, who does a great job covering the draft for ESPN, points out, Hugo Gonzalez, him bypassing or not being able to take BYU up on whatever offer they offered him, over $1 million. Okay, I can tell you this much. I am never going to pass up on $1 million. And now I work in a different stratosphere than professional athletes. They live in fairy tale land for the layman, like most of you and myself out there. $1 million for us is life-changing money. For them, $1 million, it's okay. Well, I'll get that on my next contract times 15. The bigger point is a guy like Hugo Gonzalez, wouldn't he have benefited from playing a lot more in college basketball, potentially for a program like BYU, than, as Jonathan Givony points out, where he can barely get off the bench in certain games with a lot of veteran star players with a Real Madrid team that's one of the really OGs of the EuroLeague. They competed at a very high level and are regularly contending for EuroLeague supremacy. And they're not going to be like, hey, you know what? We're going to cost ourselves a chance to win the EuroLeague title to play this young talent. You got to prove yourself. And a guy like Jaeger Demon, he did prove himself over in Europe, but then when he came to BYU, took on a bigger role. And once again, now he's absolutely thriving and likely to be, I think, off the board by the end of the lottery, 14 picks into this NBA draft. Everything screams to me that he has made good on the bet on deciding to leave BYU. I can tell you Patrick Kinahan had a guy tell him that Jaeger's leaving because he's going to be picked somewhere between 5 and 15. Well, I have had some contacts with people who have a better idea on where things stand for a guy like Jaeger Demon, and that 5 to 15 area is exactly where everybody's pegging him right now. Now, 5 could be the Utah Jazz, I'm just saying, but I'm also not expecting that. I think the Utah Jazz have other needs that they're trying to address with that 5th pick. But the nice part is Jaeger Demon shined and has absolutely upped his stock and upped the overall amount of money he's going to make. Whereas a guy like Hugo Gonzalez not only bypassed $1 million in terms of NIL and the like to come and play for BYU, and also potentially could see himself slide down. It's already has slid down the draft charts, the projections, because of the fact he's not played as much this year over in Europe. So I mentioned how did Kevin Young crack the code? Well, the EuroLeague is going to try and revamp this, is what it sounds like. There are reports out there. As I mentioned, they're going to try and treat the NCAA like a fellow professional league. Well, hopefully it'll kind of be streamlining the process of if BYU or another program wants to bring a young talent from a EuroLeague franchise over to the United States, they pay, I guess, what you'd call in, European soccer, a transfer fee across the world to get guys from one league to another. You play a transfer fee. It's a buyout, was what a lot of people call it in basketball. Did Kevin Young essentially, as I mentioned, crack the code and completely change the game once again with what he did to get Jaeger Demon over to the United States? I can't say it's just a guy like Kevin doing it, because I know there's the Jacques Jonas kid from Illinois who came over as well, but they're causing the EuroLeague to fret a little bit about losing all their young talent because, as Jonathan Givony points out, guys can come over as young talents that are still college eligible and make, as he mentions, 10 times the amount of money they'd be making playing for those EuroLeague teams. That's going to deplete the talent if the EuroLeague doesn't change their philosophy and their overall pay structure, because their young talent is going to flee across a pond, as the Brits say, to the United States to play college ball and make a bunch of money while they're doing it. And in theory, get more opportunities to shine on a bigger stage. And, oh, by the way, potentially jump to the NBA instead of sticking in the EuroLeague, where you'd like to keep them at home and playing for your franchises if you're one of those EuroLeague franchise owners. It's a very interesting dynamic here. And Kevin Young, he may have gotten ahead of the curve on this, but also at the same time may have helped streamline the process where he can bring more talent to BYU and continue to build up this roster and make BYU even more formidable than they already appear to be going into the next season and the foreseeable future. Very, very interesting times, and crazy to think that a guy like Hugo Gonzalez potentially passed up on $1 million and probably an outsized role at BYU, only to see himself glued to the bench in multiple instances in the EuroLeague. Decisions have consequences. Hindsight's 2020 and all that, but I wish Hugo the best as he makes hopefully good on his bet on himself in the NBA. But it's very clear that Jaeger Demon, as Jonathan Givony pointed out, he made the best decision of the duo there to come over and play stateside. All right, we'll finish up today's show with our weekly Q&A. Our insiders group lobbied their questions at me. We will address as many of them in the time remaining right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast. Today's show is brought to you by our friends over at Wayfair. Now, Wayfair is obviously got you guys covered no matter what you're trying to do this summer. Whether you have got a new space you're trying to fill with furniture, you want to redo that space, it is the perfect time to refresh that space and do it with our friends at Wayfair. They have everything you need to make it feel like you. Wayfair's massive selection of outdoor essentials makes it easy to transform any space into your ideal summer setup. From comfy conversation sets to sleek dining tables and outdoor decor, they've got it all and at prices that fit your budget. The best part is they've got a mix of different styles. No matter what your style is, it's like nobody else's. Wayfair makes it super easy to find the pieces that match your vibe without spending an absolute fortune to make it all your own. And whether you're entertaining guests or just relaxing solo, shop Wayfair has got you everything you need to help you unwind and enjoy the summer months ahead. So shop a huge selection of their outdoor furniture online this summer. Go outside with Wayfair and head to wayfair.com right now to get started. That's WAYFAIR.com. Wayfair.com. Get started today. That's Wayfair, every style, and of course, it's for every home. Thank you once again for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. If you have not done so already, what are you waiting for? Sign up for the Locked On Cougars Insider Group with the inside scoop on all things BYU, recruiting, football inserts, tidbits on basketball, whatever I've got for you guys. The first people who hear about it from me are our insider group. And the best part is it's a 14-day free trial before you charge a single penny and just $5 a month to be a part of the group after that. And it comes to your phone in the form of a text message. Pretty sweet deal all the way around, if I do say so myself. All right. Let's get to the questions here today. Preston gets first dibs today because he was the first one in with a question here. Jay, if you had to pick 5 players on the team who must have a great year for BYU football to achieve their goals this year, who would they be? Okay, that's pretty easy for me. Number 1, Jake Retzlaff. Ooh, big news there. Number 2, LJ Martin. If BYU has a bell cow running back, the caliber of LJ Martin stay healthy, that is going to unlock a lot for this offense. I know there's a lot of people down on LJ, but when he's been healthy, that kid's a difference maker. I really like him. Number 3, Jack Kelly. You need to have him be a star on defense. And number 4, I guess it'd be 3A and 3B for me, is Isaiah Glasker. That tandem of linebackers, they have got to be the force that really holds it down for BYU defensively. And then number 5, it's Keanu Tanavasa. He's got to lead this defensive line to glory for BYU. And that defensive line is as formidable as it could be. BYU's defense is going to be even more ferocious than it was a season ago. So those are my 5 guys. If you want me to add a 6th, man, give me, I don't know, a guy like Isaiah Jota or Andrew Gentry holding down that left tackle spot. You got to be able to obviously protect the blind side of your QB. What rank are we in basketball recruiting? Because I feel like we should be at least top 10. That comes from Jackson. Now, are you Jackson? I probably should clarify. If this is the 2026 cycle, BYU, I've not seen the rankings on 2026 quite yet, but they're pretty high in those. I know for a fact the 2025 cycle with AJ DeBonsa and company, they were top 5. So they're inside the top 10 absolutely in the 2025 class. 2026, there is still a long way to go in that recruiting cycle, and BYU swinging for the fences. They've offered a number of 5-star and 4-star talents. You bring a few of those guys in, and you can find yourself right back inside the top 10, if not the top 5 in the recruiting rankings. And that's an interesting part about this. Michael, am I the only one who gets my football fix by watching the UFL during the offseason? It's pretty fun to watch. And Puka Nakua's brothers, Samson and Kai, who played at BYU, also played on the same team. Puka showed up last week for their game and had lots of screen time. Now, Michael, I don't watch every UFL game, but I do get a fix watching the UFL. The Nakua brothers play for the Michigan Panthers. Now, Samson made some headlines a couple of weeks ago when he reached out and slapped a fan in St. Louis, got suspended for a game. But yes, they did play in Arlington last week. Puka was there. It's called Choctaw Stadium. It's actually the old Arlington ballpark that the Texas Rangers called home. They moved across the street to an indoor facility. And now that football program, the Arlington Renegades now call it home during the UFL season. You're not the only one who gets a fix of it. I just can't say I watch every game because I am a dad and I'm pretty busy with my other radio and media responsibilities, but I do get a chance to watch them, and it's fun to see the Nakua brothers playing well on the same team. All right, other ones coming in here. Chris, okay, this is a very good point. Might be a good time to recognize the BYU men's golf team for winning the NCAA regional in Reno and qualifying for the NCAA championships, which are being played at La Costa in California later this month. It's a very good point, Chris, and I failed to mention that. BYU had a 9th place finish in the Big 12 championships and ranked 33rd in the country. We're going to a regional that had a number of ACC and SEC teams like Alabama in it. The question was, could BYU rebound from a pretty horrendous run in the Big 12 championships? Well, yeah, they emerged and absolutely ran away with it. Now, this was played in Reno amidst what we like to call our Rocky Mountain spring weather. So I think BYU is better adapted to play in the conditions in Reno than maybe some of these teams coming from the Southeast. But BYU ran away with it. 15 under, 4 strokes clear of the rest of the next closest team in that regional. Showed that what BYU's got in golf, guys like Simon Kwan, Cole Ponich, on down the list, the Keanu Akina, they got a really, really nice stable of golfers for the men's golf team, and they're playing that championship. Hopefully they can have a nice showing in the NCAA championship, because that was a great, great showing in the regional. Can you parlay that into a strong run at the NCAA championships? I sure hope so, but that's a credit to Bruce Brockbank and the rest of the crew for BYU men's golf. They absolutely killed it out there in Reno. Jonathan, okay, here we go. We're going to the Jazz. If Trey Johnson isn't available at 5, should the Utah Jazz cut their losses and draft Jaeger? How is he doing at the Combine? I think I already talked about that today, Jonathan. He's absolutely killing it at the Combine. I did a bigger topic on it yesterday if you want to go back and listen to the third stanza of yesterday's podcast. But if Trey Johnson's not available at 5, I can see Jaeger Demon being an option there, but I also think VJ Edgecombe, the Baylor star, he's a two-way guy. And I know this Utah Jazz front office, they value guys who are legit two-way talents. I could see them going if VJ's there on the table as well, but I cannot discount Yair Demon potentially being that pick. Let's see. Good question here. Maybe you could tease who you might be asking a regular from the football program to be on your show this season would be. A mature, well-spoken leader would be cool. Tanuvasa if he would be willing. Is he Connor Pay type? There are too many options from me. Sorry. That comes from Alan. Now, I don't know who it's going to be. And in fact, I have to wait really until this house settlement deal kind of goes into effect. The NIL situation with regards to the clearinghouse and how that will affect things. I'm in a holding pattern myself, Alan. So I'd like to be able to tease I'm going to have somebody like Keanu Tanavasa on the show. I just don't know. And then, frankly, if it comes to it that I put a proposal together for a player and that clearinghouse cancels it, I'm up a creek without a paddle, or SOL. So that's the interesting part about it is there's no real way for me to say yes or no on it until this house settlement goes into effect. And they better get it done because if it gets approved by the judge, it goes into effect on July 1, and we are at May 16. We're a month and a half away. So they better get on this. That follows up with this good question here from Eric. Could you explain exactly what the house settlement is? I know it has to do with revenue share and roster cuts, but I always feel like I'm missing something when people bring it up. Simply put, Eric, it's the NCAA has been sued a lot. As I don't think I'm breaking any news to anybody. They are subject to litigation a lot. There are there's four main antitrust suits out there levied against the NCAA. This house settlement is combining all four of those antitrust suits, the four biggest ones, into one class settlement that is going to pay back pay in NIL to a large class of athletes, particularly football players, going back all the way to, I think, like 2016. It's also going to, as you mentioned, implement revenue share, affect roster sizes. It actually takes away scholarship caps from the NCAA. Essentially, to break it down for you, it's the way for the NCAA to settle these cases and not bankrupt themselves. Because if they take these cases, all four of them, to court, there are multiple people saying that the NCAA will lose, and B, the court costs, like the rulings against the NCAA, would rank in the billions and absolutely bankrupt the NCAA. Now, there's parts of me that would like to see the NCAA bankrupted and then just tear it all up and start over, but I get why they're trying to settle it and get it done now, but that's what it is. It's settling four antitrust cases, and the settlement terms are what are bringing that revenue share into effect, the roster situation, the scholarship caps going away, all that stuff is changing. Good question from Sione here. When the Tongan national rugby team plays a big game, the whole stadium often erupts in singing a popular Tongan hymn during a critical moment in the game, one that most churches are familiar with. It helps calm the nerves, express faith in Christ, and unify different denominations, creating an audible spiritual strength that lifts the players. What if BYU did something similar? You mentioned this. The Holy War, Lavelle Edwards Stadium, 2025, fourth quarter. BYU's down 3 at second down and 10 at the 50-yard line. A time is called, and during the break, the entire stadium erupts in singing the Army of Helaman. Is it my imagination, or would this be the coolest, most unique experience BYU and church members for the University of Utah to ever experience in a high-stakes rivalry football game? Now, Sione, I had literally never considered this until you asked it. It would be very interesting. Now, would there be a lot of people saying that, see, BYU's holier than that? They're singing hymns at football games. Yeah, they would. But you're right. It could rally the team a little bit, because a lot of the guys in that program, they are guys who are members of the LDS faith, Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. They've served missions, and obviously they would know that song. It's not a bad idea. We could workshop that a little bit. It'd be an interesting dynamic to look into. I can't say I would absolutely be able to make sure it happens, but it's very, very curious to consider that. Man, there's so many questions here. I apologize. I always seem to, I'm going to roll through all these, but I never get all of them through all of them. So I'm going to get one more in here. Oh man, which one am I going to go with here? All right, here we go. Well, it's Ryan's question. This is a good one to end on. Have you had a chance to watch any spring or summer basketball practice? If so, have you seen how the team is doing? Let's just put it this way, Ryan. I have not seen a BYU basketball practice in, man, it's been at least 2 years. Mark Pope, towards the end of his tenure, really shut things down. When he started at BYU, he was much like Dave Rose. Us as a media corps, we could go sit in the Marriott Center or the Marriott Annex and watch all of practice. They trusted that we weren't going to divulge the state secrets, I'm using the air quotes, about the program or the game plan. Frankly, I wouldn't be able to tell you what game plan they were running because I'm just not that smart with basketball. Same thing with football in many respects, but that's beside the point. But since Pope kind of shut it down, Kevin Young, it's not a thing. So I have not seen practice. I've seen the highlight reel they put out from the first day of practice, showing guys like Xavier Staten as well as AJ DeBonsa doing their thing. That's cool to see. I've also seen guys like Robert Wright III and Dominic Diomande are finally in town and obviously getting settled in. I am looking forward to seeing more highlights, but quite frankly, Ryan, the highlights you see, that's what I'm going to see. I wish I had a way to be able to share more with you, but I really don't. But I'm happy to dig into it. And anything I do here, I'll be sure to pass along to the insiders group. I can tell you that much. They will get that intel. So there you go. That's what I got for you guys on this Friday edition of the show. Truthfully, it's a blast to do these Q&As. And like I said, there's a bunch of questions here. If more come in, I'll just follow up on Monday and talk more about them, or we'll catch up next week on them as well. But as always, truthfully, do want to say thank you to all of you for your support of the podcast. Continue to subscribe, rate, and review. Share with your family and friends. Let them know it's BYU daily content that's on demand. Most importantly, it's available on YouTube or wherever they decide to get their podcast. But once again, thank you for making Locked On Cougars your first listen of the day. Have a great weekend, and we'll catch up with you guys next time right here on the Locked On Cougars podcast.